Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I've studied 47 different species across 12 star systems, and I thought I'd seen everything. Methane breathers, crystalline life forms, even those bizarre Crowlians who communicate through interpretive violence. But humans broke my entire understanding of biology, and they did it in the most ridiculous way possible. My name is Commander Vix, and I run the Xenobiology Department on Research Station. I have 4 arms, which makes multitasking easy, and exactly 0 patience for nonsense, which makes dealing with the Galactic Council complicated. When they told me we were getting a human liaison officer for our exchange program, I was actually excited. Humans were the new kids on the galactic block, and their files were fascinating. Tool users, bipedal, carbon-based, standard issue mammalian biology. Easel, the human who arrived, was named Marcus Webb. Decent enough fellow, smiled a lot, shook everyone's hand with that weird human greeting ritual. He seemed competent, asked good questions, didn't try to eat anything that would kill him. By hour 6, I was thinking this would be the easiest assignment I'd ever had. By hour 18, I was convinced Marcus was dying. It started subtle. He missed his step on the stairs. He stared at his datapad for 3 minutes without blinking. He called me Commander Fix twice and didn't notice. Then he walked directly into a wall, apologized to the wall, and continued walking into it 2 more times before I physically redirected him. Marcus, I said, using 2 hands to steer him away from the wall. He'd apparently declared war on, "Are you experiencing a medical emergency?" He looked at me with eyes that had gone completely glassy. "No, I'm fine." "Totally fine. Why would you think something's wrong?" Then he tried to microwave a datapad. Dr. Krill, my Aquian colleague, who looked like a nervous jellyfish, had anxiety and decided to become a scientist. Immediately went into panic mode. His translucent body started flashing distressed colors, cycling through yellows and oranges, like a malfunctioning traffic light. He's malfunctioning. The human is malfunctioning. We need to quarantine him before he crashes completely. Crashes. I watched Marcus attempt to drink from a plant. "What do you mean crashes?" "Look at him!" Krill's tentacles flailed in what I'd learned was his species' version of gesturing wildly. He's operating at minimal capacity. His motor functions are degraded. His cognitive processes are clearly failing. He just tried to water his mouth with a decorative fern. Marcus, still holding the plant, squinted at us. "I hate both of you. I hate everyone. This station is stupid. Space is stupid. Why is everything so loud?" Nothing was loud. The station was running at standard ambient noise levels. "Marcus, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well are you functioning right now?" I asked. 12, he said confidently, then sat down on the floor and stared at nothing for 2 minutes straight. That's when I realized we had a serious problem. This wasn't a medical emergency in the traditional sense. This was something else entirely. Marcus wasn't sick. He was shutting down. For the next 3 hours, my team and I tried everything to fix Marcus. And I mean everything. We adjusted the atmospheric composition, thinking maybe humans needed more oxygen when they were malfunctioning. Marcus just got more hostile, mumbling something about how the air tasted wrong and smelled like failure. The air was perfectly balanced. I'd checked it 4 times. Krill suggested nutritional deficiency, so we offered Marcus every human-safe food item we had in storage. He looked at a perfectly good protein bar and said, and I quote, "I will fight that rectangle." Then he tried to eat the wrapper. My assistant, a methodical Xanthari named Kree, who takes everything literally, suggested percussive maintenance. "Many mechanical systems benefit from physical recalibration," she said, which is how we ended up hitting Marcus with a pillow while he sat in a chair making increasingly concerning statements about the nature of reality. "The walls are breathing wrong," Marcus announced. "Time is soup. I can taste colors, and they all taste like regret." "This isn't working," I said, catching the pillow Kree had thrown. "We need a new approach." Marcus stood up suddenly, swayed, and pointed at Krill. "You, jellyfish. I challenge you to single combat for the honor of my breakfast." "You haven't eaten breakfast?" I pointed out. "Exactly." He took it. Look at him, floating there, all smug and translucent. Krill's body flashed panicked purple. I don't even eat solid food. That's when inspiration hit me. Or desperation. Honestly, at that point, they felt the same. I'd been reviewing Marcus's file earlier, and there was a note about human quotas requiring sleeping accommodations. At the time, I'd assumed it was like the meditation chambers some species used. But what if it was more than that? Kree, help me get Marcus to the isolation room. The isolation room? Commander, that's for containing hazardous materials. Look at him. He just tried to fistfight a data screen. He is a hazardous material right now. We managed to guide Marcus into the isolation room, which was basically a dark, quiet space with a horizontal platform we used for storing equipment. Marcus immediately became more hostile. You can't make me. I'm fine. I don't need this. I'll sleep when I'm dead. Sleep. There it was. The word I'd been looking for. Marcus, lie down on the platform. No, Marcus, that's an order. You're not my supervisor. I don't even know who you are. Why are there 3 of you? With Kree's help, we managed to get Marcus horizontal. He fought us for about 30 seconds, mumbling increasingly creative insults about my appearance, my competence, and my questionable parentage. Then, mid-sentence, he just stopped. His eyes closed, his breathing evened out. He was completely unconscious. Krill pressed against the observation window, his body now a concerned blue. Is he dead? His vital signs are stable. Kree reported checking her scanner. Respiration normal, heart rate decreased, but steady. Brain activity is actually elevated in strange patterns. So he's not dead, he's just turned off. Primita sighed slowly, watching Marcus's chest rise and fall. He's in some kind of maintenance mode. 8 hours later, Marcus woke up, just opened his eyes, stretched, and sat up like nothing had happened. We rushed into the room, scanners ready, expecting anything from confusion to continued hostility. Morning, Marcus said cheerfully. Man, I needed that. Sorry, did I miss anything important yesterday? I stared at him. Marcus, do you remember the last 26 hours? He thought about it. I remember arriving, meeting everyone, getting the station tour, and then things get kind of fuzzy. Did I say anything weird? You tried to fight a jellyfish, declared war on a wall, and told me my face looked like a disappointed math problem. Marcus went pale. Oh no. Oh no. I didn't sleep, did I? How long was I up? Up 26 hours. And you guys didn't have sleep chambers ready. Why didn't anyone stop me? That's when it clicked. This wasn't a malfunction. This was a feature. A bizarre, incomprehensible, absolutely ridiculous feature of human biology. They required a complete system shutdown. A total loss of consciousness. For approximately 1/3 of every cycle. It wasn't optional. It wasn't meditation or rest. It was a mandatory hard reboot, or humans just turned into hostile, barely functional chaos agents. I looked at Krill, whose body had gone thoughtful green. We need more test subjects. Commander, we just barely survived 1 human. Exactly, which is why we need to understand this properly, before we get it wrong somewhere important. I turned to Marcus. How would you feel about helping us study human sleep requirements? We'll provide proper sleeping quarters this time. Marcus rubbed his face. Sure, but fair warning. You're going to want to keep detailed notes. Sleep-deprived humans are apparently disasters waiting to happen. He had no idea how right he was, and how much worse it was going to get. 2 weeks later, we had 2 more human volunteers. Jamie Kowalski, a pilot with entirely too much confidence, and David Park, an engineer who thought everything was fixable with enough determination and creative. They were both enthusiastic about participating in what I was calling the human sleep deprivation study. So you want to watch us, not sleep? Jamie asked, grinning. That's it. We want to document the degradation patterns and physiological changes that occur when humans do UNT perform their mandatory shutdown cycle, I explained. David shrugged. I pulled all-nighters in college all the time. This'll be easy. Famous last words. I designed the experiment carefully. Constant monitoring. Safe environment. Emergency protocols in place. We'd track their cognitive function, motor skills, decision-making capabilities, and emotional regulation at regular intervals. Krill had insisted we wear protective equipment after hour 48, which I dismissed as excessive caution. I was so wrong. Hour 24 arrived, and both humans were still upbeat, confident, even. They aced the cognitive tests, performed physical tasks without issue, and assured us repeatedly that they felt fine. See, totally fine, Jamie said, after successfully completing a complex spatial reasoning test. I don't know what Marcus was complaining about. Yeah, I feel great, David agreed. I could do this for days. This is apparently a common human delusion. They become convinced they're functioning normally right before everything falls apart. Hour 36 is when reality decided to prove them wrong. Spectacularly. I found David in the engineering bay, elbow deep in the station's gravity control panel, humming tunelessly to himself. David, what are you doing? Oh, hey, Commander. I'm just making some improvements. The gravity here is so boring, you know. I thought, what if we made it fun? Like random fluctuations every few minutes. Keep everyone on their toes. Literally. He laughed at his own joke way too hard. David, step away from the gravity controls. But I'm almost done. I just need to cross these wires, and then I used all 4 arms to physically remove him from the panel. Kree, lock down the engineering bay. Code authorization, Vic-7. Meanwhile, Jamie had apparently challenged Krieg, a Crowleyan warrior who stood 8 feet tall and resembled what would happen if a praying mantis and a nightmare had a baby, to an arm wrestling match. I arrived to find them facing off at a table. Jamie's face set in determined concentration, Krieg's compound eyes, reflecting what I was pretty sure was confusion. Jamie, what are you doing? Defending human honor, Jamie said seriously. Krieg said humans looked fragile. I'm proving we're not. Jamie, Krieg's species can bite through titanium. So, I've got heart. That counts for something. It counts for nothing when you're arm wrestling a creature that could snap your bones like dry pasta. But I didn't get to finish that thought because David showed up, pointed at Krill, and announced, I've figured it out. You're a government spy. Krill's body flashed, alarmed orange. What? No. We're the government. We're literally on a government research station. That's exactly what a spy would say. David's eyes had gone wild. I've been watching you. Always floating around, observing things, writing notes. Classic spy behavior. I'm a scientist. That's my job. Kree, I said calmly. How many hours has it been? 38 hours, Commander. Start preparing the shutdown chambers. We're going to need them soon. I underestimated how soon. Hour 48 was when things got truly concerning. David's paranoia had evolved into elaborate conspiracy theories involving Krill, the station's coffee supply, and something he called big jellyfish. Jamie had moved past confidence into full emotional volatility, crying because she'd broken her favorite pen, then laughing hysterically about it, then getting angry at herself for crying. I'm fine, Jamie insisted, tears streaming down her face while she laughed. I'm totally fine, teases Normal. You guys are the weird ones for thinking this is weird. David had barricaded himself in his quarters, convinced we were all trying to reprogram him. It took 3 of us, and a promise that we'd de-check his room for listening devices to get him out. Hour 60 was the nightmare hour. Both humans had entered what I was now documenting as hostile shutdown mode. They were aggressive, delusional, barely capable of stringing coherent sentences together, and absolutely convinced they were functioning perfectly. I can see through time, David announced, staring at a wall. It's making rude gestures at me. Jamie had tried to fight the coffee maker, lost, and was now sitting on the floor glaring at it. That machine disrespected me. That's it, I said. Emergency shutdown protocol. Cree, help me get them to the chambers. Getting too hostile, delusional humans into shutdown chambers was like trying to herd cats. Angry, paranoid cats who could speak and had opposable thumbs. David kept insisting he needed to warn the others about the jellyfish uprising. Jamie tried to bite Cree, who thankfully had exoskeleton plating. But finally, we got them horizontal in dark, quiet rooms. Like Marcus before them, they fought unconsciousness for maybe a minute, before their systems just gave up and forced the shutdown. 8 hours later, both humans emerged completely normal. Cheerful, even. How'd we do? Dabi Asket. I stared at him. You tried to sabotage the gravity controls, declared war on a jellyfish, and became convinced time was insulting you. Classic sleep deprivation, Jamie said, nodding like this was completely reasonable. Yeah, that sounds about right. Were we really that bad? I showed them the video footage. They watched their own descent into chaos with a kind of detached amusement Udi give to a mildly entertaining documentary about someone else's life. Okay, yeah, that's pretty bad, David admitted. But you have to understand, in the moment all of that made perfect sense. That's what terrified me most. To them, while it was happening, it all seemed logical. Primera ademai data. Now I just needed to convince the Galactic Council that humans were too dangerous to allow in space. This was going to be interesting. Presenting findings to the Galactic Council is never fun. Imagine a room full of bureaucrats from different species, all of whom think their biology is superior, none of whom want to hear about new complications. Now imagine trying to explain to them that humans, the newest spacefaring species, have a built-in self-destruct timer that activates every 24 hours. The council chamber was packed. Representatives from 30 different species, all seated in their species-appropriate furniture, all looking at me with varying degrees of skepticism. At the head of the room sat Ambassador Throck, a Saurian whose species had been spacefaring for 3,000 years and never let anyone forget it. He had the look of someone who already decided humans were a mistake before I said a single word. Commander Vix Throck's translator rendered his hissing speech into flat, unimpressed tones. You've called this emergency session to discuss human biology. This should be entertaining. I activated my presentation, showing the brain scans and behavioral data I'd collected. Honorable Council members, I'm here to discuss a critical aspect of human physiology that affects their viability as spacefaring partners. Humans require a complete system shutdown, which they call sleep, for approximately 8 hours out of every 24-hour cycle. Murmurs around the room. A Physian representative, whose species meditated for 2 hours daily, spoke up. A shutdown? You mean like rest periods? No. I mean complete unconsciousness. Total loss of awareness and voluntary motor control. They are, for all intents and purposes, offline for 1/3 of every cycle. The murmurs got louder. Throck leaned forward. You're telling us that humans are vulnerable and defenseless for 8 hours every day. That's correct. And what happens if they don't perform this shutdown? I pulled up the footage of Jamie trying to fight the coffee maker. They degrade rapidly. Cognitive function declines. Motor control becomes impaired. Emotional regulation fails completely. They become hostile, irrational, and dangerously impulsive. After approximately 60 hours, their barely functional Acohelian representative, whose species was known for their paranoia, stood up. This is unacceptable. How can we trust allies who turn into unstable liability machines if they miss a nap? They don't just turn into liabilities, I said carefully. They also become unpredictable problems, creative in ways that violate standard safety protocols. They accomplish objectives through sheer refusal to acknowledge they should stop. Throke's eyes narrowed. That sounds like chaos, not capability. It's both, I admitted, which is why I'm recommending strict protocols around human sleep schedules on any multi-species missions. Protocols? Throke's laugh was a sharp hiss. Commander, what you're describing is a fundamental design flaw. Humans are defective. They're not ready for space travel, let alone cooperation with the galactic community. I move that we table all human integration initiatives until they evolve past this absurd biological limitation. That got my temper up. I'm not proud of it, but I'd spent weeks studying humans. And yes, they were ridiculous, but they were also brilliant. Defective. Ambassador. Humans achieved spaceflight. Despite this limitation, they built a civilization, developed faster-than-light travel, and made first contact while requiring 8 hours of mandatory shutdown every single day. If anything, that makes them more impressive, not less. Or it makes them dangerous, the Zenthari elder added. What if a human in a critical position fails to perform their shutdown cycle during an emergency? That was a legitimate concern, and I didn't have a good answer, which is why I said something I immediately regretted. Then we test it. Give me a mixed crew. Create an emergency scenario, and let's see how humans actually perform under pressure. Throke's mouth curved into what I was pretty sure was a smile, which on a Saurian looks like a threat display. An excellent suggestion, Commander. The Council will design a 72-hour emergency simulation. Your human subjects will participate, along with yourself and other crew members. If they fail, the Council will have grounds to restrict human activity in galactic space. If they succeed, ... He paused. Well, we'll discuss that if it happens. I'd just bet my career, and possibly humanity's future in space, on 3 humans who considered sleep deprivation a recreational activity in college. Marcus, Jamie, and David were thrilled when I told them. A 72-hour simulation. Awesome. David said. We'll crush it, Jamie added. Marcus just looked at me. We're not going to be allowed to sleep, are we? No. And you're hoping we do. You want to completely lose our minds and prove the Council right about humans being too unstable for space. That's the general idea, yes. Marcus sighed. Well, this should be interesting. When do we start? Tomorrow. Get a good night's sleep. You're going to need it. Famous last words. Again, the simulation started at 0600 station time. The scenario was straightforward. Our crew of 7-3 humans, myself, Krill, Kree, and Krigwaz, aboard a damaged research vessel under attack by space pirates. The pirates were simulated, but the repairs were real, and the problems were designed to escalate. The catch, my human crew members didn't know it was fake. As far as they were concerned, this was a genuine emergency, and they absolutely could not be allowed to sleep. Hours 1 through 20 were exactly what I'd expected. Humans in normal operating condition are impressive. Marcus coordinated our damage control efforts with calm efficiency. Jamie piloted us through a debris field with a kind of precision that made even Krieg's mandibles click in approval. David had already bypassed 3 damaged systems and was working on a 4th. Hull breach in Section 7, Cray reported. On it, Marcus said. Already moving. David, I need power rerouted to the emergency seals. Give me 30 seconds. David's hands flew across the console, and the lights flickered once before stabilizing. Done. You've got seals. They were professional, competent. Everything was going according to plan, which meant I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. With humans, there's always another shoe. Hour 24 is when I noticed the shift. Nothing dramatic, just subtle changes. Marcus's jokes got darker. If we all die here, at least the paperwork will be someone else's problem. Jamie's movements became more focused, almost aggressive in their precision. David stopped asking for permission before implementing solutions. David, what are you doing? I asked, watching him open a panel that definitely said authorized personnel only. Fixing the thermal regulator? Standard method would take 90 minutes. My way takes 20. Your way involves bypassing for safety protocols. Yeah, but it'll work. He grinned, and there was something slightly unhinged in his eyes. Trust me. The thermal regulator was fixed in 18 minutes. I made a note to review exactly what he'd done later, after I confirmed we weren't all going to die. Hour 36 was when things got weird. The humans had stopped following standard procedures entirely. They were still solving problems, actually solving them faster than before, but the methods were increasingly creative and vaguely horrifying. Simulated pirate vessel incoming, Cree announced. 3 minutes to weapons range. Jamie, evasive maneuvers, Marcus ordered. Oh, Jamie said, and her voice had that particular tone that made my spine tingle in warning. Hear me out. What if we don't evade? Jamie, we've got that debris field behind us, right? Big chunks of metal, lots of sharp edges. What if we lead them into it, then use the damaged thruster David said was unfixable to execute a sudden thrust reversal? They won't expect us to move like that, because it's stupid. But stupid works if the other guy thinks you're smart. Marcus stared at her. That could work. That could kill us, I pointed out. Yeah, but it probably won't, Jamie said. 70-30 odds. I like those numbers. You like those numbers? My voice went up an octave. 70 compared to getting shot by pirates. Yes. I like those numbers, Marcus. Marcus looked at me, and I saw the moment he made the decision. Do it. Jamie's maneuver worked. Somehow, the pirate ship got tangled in debris. We executed an impossible thrust reversal that made my organs rearrange themselves, and we escaped. I was going to throw up. The humans were celebrating. That was incredible. David laughed. Did you see their ship just crunch into that asteroid? Beautiful. Jamie, that was the dumbest plan I've ever heard work, Marcus said, grinning. Sleep-deprived tactics. We should trademark that. Hour 48 is when I realized the humans weren't just effective despite their degraded state. They were effective because of it. They'd stopped worrying about proper procedure. They saw a problem, invented a solution, and implemented it before their better judgment could kick in. Commander Krill floated over to me, his body cycling through anxious colors. I don't think the humans are okay. Define okay. David has been giggling to himself for 5 minutes while rewiring the environmental controls. Marcus just threatened to fight the nav computer because it gave him attitude. And Jamie told me she can taste the color of hyperspace. I looked across the bridge. Jamie was indeed staring into space with an expression of deep concentration. Jamie, are you all right? I can taste colors, Commander. Purple tastes like regret and broken promises. That's concerning, is it? I think it's enlightening. Very philosophical. Makes you think about the nature of perception and consciousness. She paused. Also, I hate everyone right now. Not personally. Just in general. Existence is exhausting. Noted. Hour 60 was when we hit the simulation's final crisis. Catastrophic power failure across all systems. Life support failing. Engines dead. Communications offline. We had, according to the simulation, 40 minutes before we all suffocated. The humans looked at each other. They were past tired, past functional. They were running on nothing but spite, chemical stimulants, and what I was pretty sure was a complete detachment from their survival instincts. Okay, Marcus said, his voice flat. David, can you fix it? Absolutely not. It's impossible. The entire power grid is fried. We'd need to rebuild the system from the ground up, and we don't have the parts or the time. But David smiled. And it was the smile of someone who stopped caring about things like safety regulations and proper engineering standards. But I can probably do something that technically should even work but might work anyway, because I am going to ignore several fundamental laws of physics and electrical engineering. How long? 35 minutes. You've got 20? Jamie, can you keep us stable? Stable is a strong word. How do you feel about spinning? Not great. Then I'll try not to let us spin. No promises. For the next 20 minutes, I watched 3 sleep-deprived humans accomplish something that should have been impossible. David bypassed, rerouted, and jury-rigged systems in ways that would give any engineer a heart attack. Jamie kept us from drifting into a gravity well, using only maneuvering thrusters that barely functioned. Marcus coordinated it all, while simultaneously doing emergency repairs on the life support system with Cree. With 4 minutes to spare, power came back online. Systems flickered to life. The crisis was over. That's when the simulation ended. Lights changed. The emergency klaxons cut off. A holographic display appeared. Simulation complete. All 3 humans turned to look at me. Simulation, Marcus said quietly. It was a test. The council needed to see how you'd perform during an extended crisis without sleep. We stayed awake for 60 hours, Jamie said, her voice dangerously calm, for a fake emergency. Yes, we could have died doing some of that stuff, but you didn't. You passed. You completed an impossible scenario through creativity and determination. David stood up. Commander, I'm going to say this respectfully. I'm going to sleep now. You can tell the council they can review our performance after we wake up. If they have questions before then, they can wait, because if I don't sleep immediately, I'm going to start crying, and I don't know if I'll be able to stop. That's fair. All 3 humans made it approximately 10 feet toward their quarters before Jamie just sat down on the floor. I can't make it. This is where I live now. The floor is my home. Marcus leaned against a wall. The floor does look nice. Very supportive. Good choice. David had already curled up next to his supply crate and closed his eyes. They didn't even make it to the shutdown chambers. They just passed out right there in the corridor, too exhausted to care about comfort or propriety. Cree and I had to physically move them to proper sleeping quarters. But we'd done it. We'd proven humans could function in crisis situations. Now I just had to convince the council that what they'd witnessed was competence and not chaos. Honestly, I wasn't sure which one it had been. The council reconvened 3 days later, after my human crew members had recovered and I'd had time to compile my final report. The chamber was packed again, everyone eager to hear the results. Throck sat at the head, looking like he'd already prepared his speech about restricting human activity. I stood before them with my data, my observations, and 3 humans who were still slightly annoyed about the whole fake emergency situation. Honorable Council, I began. I've completed my study of human sleep requirements and their performance under extended crisis conditions. My findings are conclusive. I pulled up the simulation footage, showing every impossible thing my crew had accomplished. Humans don't sleep to rest. That's what we got wrong. Sleep isn't about recovery or relaxation for them. It's a safety feature. Throck made a dismissive sound. A safety feature that makes them vulnerable for 8 hours every day. No. A safety feature that prevents them from becoming chaos agents. Watch. I showed footage of David's increasingly creative solutions. Jamie's reckless but effective piloting. Marcus's willingness to approve plans that violated every safety protocol we had. Without sleep, humans become unpredictable. They stop following rules. They take risks that should terrify them. They accomplish objectives through sheer stubbornness and refusal to acknowledge they should quit. That sounds dangerous, someone said. It is, but it's also effective. Look at the results. They completed a scenario designed to be impossible. They did it in 60 hours. And they did it because they were sleep-deprived, not despite it. I switched to brain scans, showing the neurological changes. Human sleep is a mandatory anger timeout. It's a system reset. Without it, they bypass their own better judgment, their fear responses, their adherence to established procedures. They become fearless, creative, and dangerously effective. You're arguing that humans are better when they're malfunctioning, the Corellian representative asked. I'm arguing that humans have evolved a biological system that makes them unstoppable in crisis situations. Yes, they need to shut down regularly. Yes, that makes them vulnerable, but that vulnerability is balanced by their ability to function beyond normal limits when necessary. They don't stop when they should. They don't quit when it's logical. They just keep going until either the problem is solved or they physically collapse. I looked directly at Throck. You call them defective? I'm saying they're designed for survival in ways we don't fully understand. They're angry, stubborn, sleep-deprived disaster machines, and that somehow makes them perfect for space exploration. Marcus raised his hand. Are we still in the room? Because that description, while accurate, is kind of embarrassing. It's also true, I said. The council deliberated for 2 hours. When they reconvened, Throck stood. The council has reviewed your findings, Commander Vix. We acknowledge that humans possess unique capabilities. However, we have concerns about their reliability. My heart sank. Therefore, Throck continued, we are implementing new regulations. All vessels with human crew members must maintain strict sleep schedules. Interfering with human sleep cycles will be considered a hostile act. Facilities must provide appropriate shutdown chambers, and most importantly, ... Doubly quotes. He paused, his expression grim. Never, under any circumstances, should anyone deliberately prevent a human from sleeping or anger, a sleep-deprived human. Consider them hazardous materials during degraded states. Wait. That wasn't a restriction. That was accommodation. The Council recognizes humans as viable spacefaring partners, with the understanding that their biological requirements must be respected. Commander Vix, your humans are cleared for continued service. The 3 humans exchanged looks. Did we just get classified as hazardous materials? Jamie asked. I think that's a compliment, David said. It's definitely not an insult, Marcus added. Though I'm slightly concerned about the never anger a sleep-deprived human thing. That feels oddly specific. After the council session, I found my humans celebrating in the station's recreation area. They'd been declared heroes, though they were still processing being categorized somewhere between valuable crew members and controlled substances. So, Marcus said as I approached, what's next for you, Commander? More research, probably. I've documented one species' bizarre biology. The galaxy's full of strange things to study. You know, Jamie said, you could have just asked us about sleep. We would have told you it was important. You also told me you'd be fine staying awake for 72 hours. Yeah, but we were lying. Everyone lies about being fine without sleep. It's human nature. David raised his glass. To Commander Vix, who proved that humans are angry computers that need to be turned off and on again to function. That's not exactly what I proved. But it's accurate, Marcus said. We are basically irritable machines running on coffee and spite until someone makes us take a nap. I couldn't argue with that. I'd spent months studying humans, and that was possibly the most accurate description I'd heard. 2 humans, I said, raising my own glass. The only species in the galaxy that needs a mandatory anger, timeout, and somehow made it to space. Anyway, we drank to that. Later, as I was updating my files, I added a final note to the human species profile. Humans are functionally immortal, running on determination and poor life choices. They require 8 hours of forced unconsciousness every 24 hours. Not because they need rest, but because without it, they become unstoppable forces of creative destruction. They are brilliant, stubborn, terrifying, and absolutely perfect for the chaos of space exploration. Recommend friendship. Also recommend never, ever preventing them from sleeping. 3 months later, the station implemented mandatory human nap time on all schedules. The humans were mortified. The rest of us considered it a necessary safety precaution, because we'd learned the hard way that humans don't sleep to rest. They sleep to prevent themselves from conquering the galaxy through sheer spite and bad decisions. And, honestly, I'd grown fond of these angry, defective, magnificent creatures. The best part? 6 months after my report, the Galactic Council received applications from 15 different species, requesting human crew members for high-risk missions. Apparently, nothing says we need this impossible problem solved quite like a sleep-deprived human with a questionable plan and the confidence to execute it. Marcus sent me a message last week. He's now leading a deep space exploration team, and he included a photo of their ship's schedule, right there, in bold letters, blocked out on every crew member's calendar. Human sleep time do not disturb unless ship is literally exploding. Even then, he added, they'd probably want to finish their nap first. I am not sure if humanity conquered the galaxy or if we just learned to work around their need for aggressive naps. Either way, the universe got a lot more interesting the day we realized humans don't sleep to rest. They just shut down like angry computers until they're forced to reboot, and somehow, that's exactly what we needed.